Late on a night of August 8, 1969, a small group drove through Los Angeles toward a house in an upscale neighborhood. Inside, actress Sharon Tate was home with friends. She was 8 months pregnant. It should have been an ordinary night. Instead, before morning, the house would become one of the most infamous crime scenes in American history. At first, the attack made almost no sense. There was no obvious reason for it, no clear connection that explained why this house, why these people, why that night. And before anyone could make sense of it, there was another attack the very next night, another house, another set of victims, another scene that left people across Los Angeles staring at their locks and wondering what kind of fear had just entered their city. The answer led back to a man who, not long before that, had been talking to young people about love, freedom, and leaving the fake parts of society behind. His name was Charles Manson. To understand how the story got there, you have to go back to the Los Angeles of the late 1960s. The city felt like the center of a changing world. Music was everywhere. So were big ideas, peace, freedom, breaking away from old rules. A lot of young people were looking for meaning, and not in the safe, familiar places where they had grown up. That search opened a door for someone like Manson. He did not stand out as a giant or a loud, overpowering figure. He was short, soft-spoken. He had long hair and a way of fixing his eyes on people that made them feel seen. He did not need to shout. That was part of the pull. He spoke quietly, but people listened. What he offered was not just rebellion. It was belonging. He told people they did not need the rest of society. They did not need the system. They could walk away from all of it and build something new, somewhere far from the world that had disappointed them. For people who already felt lost, those words hit exactly where they needed to. So they stayed, and they followed. Over time, the group around him became known as the Manson Family. They lived together and moved from place to place, before settling at a rundown ranch on the outskirts of Los Angeles. Life there did not look anything like ordinary life in the city. There were no regular jobs, no schedules. Days blended together with music, long conversations, and nights spent under the open sky. From the outside, it might have looked chaotic. From the inside, it felt like a world of its own. And at the center of that world was Manson. He was not just the person giving directions or making plans. Inside the group, he became something bigger than that. He became the person who explained the world, the person who could make confusion sound like truth, the person people trusted, even when what he was saying should have raised every alarm. It started with ideas that sounded almost idealistic: love, freedom, escape. But slowly, those ideas darkened. Manson began talking about a coming conflict, a race war, and the collapse of society. He took the phrase helter-skelter from a Beatles song and gave it a meaning the band never intended. In his telling, it was not just a phrase, it was a prophecy. He said the conflict was coming no matter what. He said the world would be destroyed and rebuilt, and he said his group would survive it. More than that, he told them they had a part to play in bringing that future into being. From the outside, that sounds impossible to hear without pulling away. But inside the group, the normal way of judging right and wrong had been wearing down for a long time. By then, Manson's voice had become the one that defined reality. If he said something was true, it was accepted. If he pushed the group in a direction, people went. That is what made the summer of 1969 so dangerous. By then, Manson believed the time for action had come. He told some of his followers they needed to help start the chaos he had been talking about. Not with speeches, not with symbols alone, with acts so violent they would shock the world. That is how the group ended up on the road on August 8th. They drove through quiet streets toward Sharon Tate's house. Tate was young, successful, and close to giving birth. Friends were with her. It should have been a normal evening, the kind people never imagine will be remembered for the worst reason possible. Then, the group entered the house. What happened inside was violent, chaotic, and hard to process even now. By the time it was over, multiple people had been killed. Los Angeles was stunned. People could understand murder when there was some visible trail behind it, some argument, some revenge, some known enemy. This felt different. The crime did not come with a clear explanation. It felt random, which made it even more frightening for the people trying to live around it. The next night, another group went out. Another house was chosen. Another set of victims was killed. At that point, fear spread fast. Doors were locked. Neighbors watched each other differently. The city no longer felt as open as it had only days before. For a time, no one knew who was responsible. The crimes did not immediately come together in a way that made sense. They looked disconnected, almost impossible to explain. But slowly, the truth started to form. Piece by piece, the trail led back to the Manson family and to Charles Manson, the man who had once drawn people in with talk of love and freedom. The world then had to face a different kind of question, not just who committed the crimes, but how a group of people could be led to do something so extreme. The answer was not simple. Manson had not begun with violence, he had begun with connection. He told people what they needed to hear, he gave them purpose, he gave them the feeling that they belonged somewhere, and over time, he replaced their sense of reality with his own. By the time the killings happened, that change had already taken hold. What looked unthinkable from the outside no longer felt unthinkable inside the group. When members of the Manson family were arrested, the story only grew more unsettling. The trials pulled the public deeper into the case. People were horrified not only by the killings, but by the mindset behind them. The way a belief system had been built slowly and quietly until it crossed into violence. That may be the part of this story that stays with people the longest. Not just that Charles Manson led others toward murder, but that he did it without starting there. He built influence first, trust first, dependence first. He created a version of the world where his followers stopped testing his words against anything outside the group. Once that happened, the final step into violence became possible. The hills around Los Angeles are still there, the streets are still full. Life moved on, as it always does, but the story of the Manson family did not disappear with the end of the trials. It stayed in people's minds as a warning about how beliefs can be twisted, how belonging can be weaponized, and how a person who promises freedom can, in the end, lead others somewhere far darker. And that is what makes this story so hard to shake. It was not only about the brutality of 2 nights in August, it was about the long path that led there, one conversation at a time, until a search for meaning turned into obedience, and obedience turned deadly. As always, visit us at readtherealstory.com for more unbelievable true stories. Until next time, stay curious.